Everyone who's tuning in today, thank you for joining us. Today we're very privileged to be in conversation with Nithya Shanti, and many of us would have met him within the Hali and heard him speaking. So he's an ordained Buddhist monk, but now from those experiences, he's felt that he's got to share with the rest of society and also help us all on this spiritual journey of ours. And he's someone who really needs no introduction, but I'm sure he will share a bit about his story later. And today we're lucky because we get to have this intimate interaction with him. So thank you, Nithya, for joining us.
Lovely to be here. How nice to have a youthful group. So we'll have youthful energy flowing. Let's all take a minute to tune in. I feel like chanting Om 3 times. If you want to join me, you can. Beautiful. So something inspired Dinesh to contact me, and something inspired me to say yes, and something inspired each one of you to be here. And I imagine most of you are here from your volition, although you never know, you may have a few people who've been grudgingly brought in. Listen to this. Sometimes that happens. And so whatever it is, you've been brought here. So my prayer is that whatever that original impetus of inspiration was that led each one of us to be here, may that find fulfillment. May that find fulfillment. And so may each of us be open vessels, receptive vessels to tune in. Whatever adjustment needs to happen, whatever clarification needs to happen, whatever validation needs to happen, whatever re-energizing in any aspect of our life needs to happen. May it happen, and may it happen spontaneously. I remember a time when I was a monk. I was living in a branch monastery. It's closer to Bangkok. And I was there for what's called the Varshavas, 3 months. It's called Vasa in Pali language. And I was there for 3 months, and maybe longer than 3 months actually. And I remember feeling a lot of struggle in my practice at that time. Everything was just seeming so heavy. It's like, I think we all have been through that phase where you just, like, every step just seems so heavy. So I was in that phase. I was practicing, but I just found everything so heavy. And we had a visit from a monk, a very senior monk. I had never heard of this monk, but it turns out he's a long practicing monk who had practiced in the forest, the deep forest, for a very long time. And he came to visit, and he spoke in Thai. I couldn't understand what he was saying. But I noticed just being there, listening to him, it's like things just began falling away. It's like glaciers began melting. I just literally could feel, like you see those sad movies of climate change where glaciers are falling apart. Like, oh, climate destruction is happening. In my case, I felt these inner glaciers were just falling apart, layer after layer. And I didn't even understand what he was speaking, because he was speaking in Thai. I didn't know Thai. And I'm just sitting there and I'm listening, and chuck, one after the other, glaciers are melting. And very naturally, I come to a kind of very original resonance. The original resonance of just being. We all have an original resonance. And it's one of our important tasks in life, is to learn to get familiar with it. It's a very important task. You may not always be able to abide in it, but at least to get familiar with it. Because that's your resting frequency. You got to keep coming back to that. And the whole beauty of the spiritual path is, if you approach it with the right attitude, it keeps getting you back to that home frequency. And that home frequency tells you what to believe, what not to believe, what to do, what not to do, what to trust, what not to trust. And we don't have to just become parrots and pigeons, just copying other people. I don't know if pigeons copy, but parrots definitely copy. Copying other people. I remember Swami called me for an interview. I think I've only had one interview with him. And he told me, Nithya, you have to teach what you teach. Please don't parrot what I teach. It was such a relief to hear that, right? Because I loved him and I loved his teaching. But I'm like, do I really now have to become like this Swami person who has to always talk and behave like that? So he told me, no, you just be yourself. You have to be yourself. And that's where the magic will happen. Of course, he didn't say it. Again, I'm putting in my own words, but he said it in his own words. And he said, you will come and you will offer what you have to offer. And you will offer it in your own way. And that's exactly what's needed. And I love this definition of guru. Some of you might have heard of it. G-U-R-U. It's a guru. So guru is G. You are you. You are you. I love that definition. That's the true meaning of guru. You can just let the person be you. You're not trying to mold them into some idea of what they're supposed to be. In the beginning, it may seem like they're trying to mold you, but the reality is they're trying to break off all these glaciers that I talked about, all the extra layers that have come onto us. That's what has to be torn off. There's a story of Mila Repa. Some of you might have heard of Mila Repa. When I first read Mila Repa's story, I was almost shivering with inspiration. That was the power of that story. Because Mila Repa, if you've heard of him, Tibetan master, it begins with him born in a very rich family, living in a village in Tibet. And then his father dies. And when the father dies, then of course the brothers, just the way that works, the brothers take over the property and everything. And right away, his mother and him, I don't know, I forget if he had siblings, they're just impoverished. They're just given a small little room to live in. They're not given good food to eat. And he grows up his whole childhood in resentment that, these uncles have just taken over everything. And it comes to a point that he decides to take revenge. And he goes to a master of black magic. And he says, teach me black magic. I want to take revenge on these relatives who've been so bad to me. So the teacher is hesitant. He said, you don't know what you're getting into, man. This is not a nice thing. But anyway, he's very insistent. So he teaches him. And the black magic he teaches him is the power to bring a hailstorm. When you live in a city, in a solid house, you don't even notice if hailstorms come and go. But if you live in a village where your life depends on crops and your homes are not that strong, then a whole hailstorm can be very, very devastating. So he brings the hailstorm upon his village, and it devastates the homes and the crops of his uncles. And I'm forgetting if some of them even die from it. And soon after he does it, he realizes he made a big mistake. And the repentance comes. But in that moment, he was just kind of, it happened, in the moment. In fact, that's one of the points I want to make today is that in the moment, we always think we're right. Well, no matter what it is. You're so convinced. This is it. Of course, this is the way it is. Self-righteous. This is a big function of the ego. The ego is self-righteous. No matter what happens, I'm right. There's this funny story of this teacher who, two students are arguing. They can't agree on some topic. So they say, okay, we can't agree. Let's ask the teacher. So they go to the teacher. Teacher lives in a small hut. So the first one says, you wait outside, I'll ask. So he goes inside, he bows to the teacher and says, teacher, he said this. I said this. His point is completely illogical. Mine is so reasonable based on the scriptures. I'm right, isn't it? So teacher smiles and says, you're right. So he's very happy. He goes out. So look, teacher told me I'm right. I told you you're wrong. The other one said, what nonsense. I don't know what you told him. You stay here. I'm going to go inside. So he goes inside. He bows to the teacher and says, teacher, he said this. It's got no foundation in facts. I said this. This is what you also teach. I'm right, isn't it? So teacher listens to him very carefully and says, you're right. So he's very happy. He goes outside and says, I don't know what he told you, but teacher told me I'm right. How can that be? So now they both squeeze into the little hut and they both bow down. So teacher, you told him he's right. You told me also I'm right. We can't both be right. So teacher smiles and says, you're right. And the teacher is trying to introduce them to a world beyond the right and the wrong, the right and the left. You might have heard this famous quote by Rumi. Rumi says, beyond ideas of right doing and wrong doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. So this is one ability we have to develop in our journey of being able to see that all points of view are valid. You know, as a youth group, you probably do some projects together, you do some seva together. And you're going to hit up against people with very different personalities than you. Some people are very devout, some people are very rational, some people are very, casual, fun-going, spontaneous, some people are very structured. And sooner or later, you're going to bump against these people. And then there's a temptation to say, what is this person? He's spoiling the whole energy of the group by being this way. And what you need to realize is that's exactly what you need to come up against, to realize that they are also right. And that's another aspect of life which you may not have fully acknowledged or realized. So coming back to Milarepa's story, Milarepa then he goes to his teacher, Marpa. He's not his teacher yet. Marpa realizes this fellow has been up to mischief. He's gone ahead and made some very heavy karma. So Marpa is not willing to take him as a student. But Milarepa is very persistent. One good quality Milarepa, very persistent. So he just persists, teach me. So finally says, all right, I'll teach you. If you build a tower 7 stories high with rocks. Now imagine up there in those higher altitudes, carrying rocks on the back. So single-handedly, he builds a tower 7 stories high. And the teacher looks at it and frowns and says, what nonsense. This is not what I ordered. I ordered this. This was not right. This was not right. This was not right. Dismantle it. Build it again. Build it again. Again, he builds it. Again, this is not right. That is not right. Dismantle it. 7 times he has to build a tower 7 stories high. His whole back is bleeding, carrying these stones. And look at the gumption. He still does not give up. He says, give me the teaching. I shall not go and give me the teachings. So you see what Marpa was doing? He was creating the foundation. The teachings actually are not that complicated. Nowadays, you go online, all the teachings are available. Even the secret teachings are available. But they will mean nothing to you, because unless you have a sense of, I am worthy of these teachings, or I recognize the value. When you have built a tower 7 stories high and dismantled it and built it 7 times, the simplest teaching I tell you, I say chant the mantra Ram. That mantra will take you all the way to heaven and beyond. But if I just tell you chant the mantra Ram, you're like, yeah. But are you sure Ram? Isn't Ram and Hare Krishna better? Or isn't Om Namah Shivaya better actually for my personality? Actually, I'm not sure what mantra is. Isn't meditation better? Because you'll keep on doubting. So we all have to go through this. In the Tibetan tradition, they have the purification. Before you're given a teaching, you have to go through purification. They're called the preliminary practices. And they are very, in a way, very monotonous. You have to do 10,000 bows. You bow down. And if you go to the Bodh Gaya temple, it's not just a bow like that. You have to bow your full body prostration. And then you get up again, you stand. And then you go. And then again, you bow all the way down. Full body prostrations, 10,000 of them. Or you have to make 10,000 or maybe sometimes 20,000, 50,000. Whatever the number comes to the teacher's mind, he'll give it to you. Now you're stuck with that number. So if you say 50,000, you got to make 50,000. Small, like, with atta, with flour, you have to make small little Buddha, like there'll be a mold, and you make a Buddha statue, small little Buddha statue out of flour. And then you put it out for the birds to eat. And so you're transmitting the teachings throughout nature. You have to say a mantra some 2 million times. And to do these preliminary practices, for most people, will take anywhere from 2 to 5 to 6 years. Why are they doing this? So you feel worthy. Actually, that's what it is. That's all it is. When you feel worthy, then the simplest things go deep. Because ultimately, you have to realize all these things that we're up to, all these teachings, all these ashrams, all these seva, all of it, what is it? It is giving you a way to enter a room that you're already in. Now, the more complicated your mind is, the more complicated a way I have to give you. If you've got a really super complicated mind, I'll say, please go to Washington, D.C., walk down there, and then cycle back. And in between, also go and touch the feet of 10 homeless people. And then come back to the same room. So if you're one of those people, then we have to put you on this long, winding path. And then you'll say, oh, wow, what a great room. What an amazing. One of the best-selling books of all time is The Alchemist. Should I spoil it for you? I don't think I should spoil it for you. But the book is basically about this. That at the end of the long journey, you come back to where you were and you realize, oh my God, what I was searching for all along, I already had it. This is the realization. This is what all the teachers and all the teachings are telling us. You don't gain anything new. You let go of all that you think that you know to reveal something that is ever new, something that is foundational. This is actually more a process of unraveling and unbinding. It's not so much about making you into anything. It's mostly about resolving. In fact, the word educate, you might know the meaning. Educate, whether it's Latin or Greek, I don't know. The deeper meaning of it, the root meaning is to uncover. To educate is to uncover. So even today's session, it's actually more about uncovering. Because it would be very presumptuous of me to give you more concepts. In fact, there's a powerful teaching, which is hard to follow, but it's a foundational teaching. It's the teaching of non-interference. Don't presume you know what's best for somebody else. There's a nice quote where Swami, he says, love my uncertainty, for it is not a mistake. What a great quote. Love my uncertainty, for it is not a mistake. Harivansh Rai Bachchan would say, man chahi ho to acha, na ho to aur bhi acha. If you get what you want, that's great. If you don't get what you want, that's fantastic. That's brilliant. In other words, you've been praying to Swami for a long time. And you get what you want. Fantastic. You don't get what you want. That's brilliant. Swami really loves me. He's got a better plan for me. It's a really powerful way of seeing things. So one concept I want to share with you is that we don't really know what's good for us. Can we acknowledge that? That at that time we thought it's so good for us, it's the best thing, it's the right thing. And then some months and years later, we said, what foolishness. There was nothing there. What was I doing over there? Oh my goodness. And I was so convinced at that time. This is a good thing to keep in mind, that we don't always know what's good for us. In fact, the ego is notorious for getting it wrong. One of my teachers, Robert Adams, says, when you think nothing is happening, that's when the most is happening. So by this definition, all the times you thought you were unspiritual, nothing was happening, you were lost, that's when the most was happening. And all the times you think, I've been so spiritual, I've been doing seva, I've been volunteering, and I've helped so many people, you're building a nice spiritual ego over there. A new identity. Yeah. Look how spiritual I am. One day my friends will also get it. They will also be like me one day. It's a game, isn't it? So this is one important idea that I want to build on, is that we don't really know what's best for us. And when we think we are stuck, might be when the most is happening, spiritually speaking. Love my uncertainty, for it is not a mistake. And he doesn't just say, okay, accept he said, love my uncertainty. So if you're going through a phase of uncertainty, your instruction is love it. Love it. Oh, I love this. It's brilliant. There's a wonderful teacher, Pema Chodron, and she talks about a phase in her practice which she got very depressed. And this can happen. We can get quite depressed sometimes. She got very depressed. This is not a normal depression. This is like a spiritual depression, where you feel very deep down, my soul is only dark. Nothing can ever be done with this fellow. This one, I'm just gone. I'm just like nothing. I'm beyond saving. That kind of like, I'm just stuck, badly stuck. So she got into this phase, and she was in this phase for quite a while. And she finally got the courage to talk to one of her teachers. And she speaks to him and says, all of this is going on. And layers and layers of stuff. And nothing, no practice is working. I'm feeling so stuck. And the teacher just looks at her. He doesn't really answer. What did he? I think what I remember is he doesn't have much to say to her. He's like, yeah. So she's very disappointed, With great difficulty, I asked my teacher, and he doesn't have much to say. So now she's even more despondent. And the teacher walks away for a while. And he comes back and he taps her on the shoulder. He looks at her directly in the eyes and he says, Dakini bliss. Dakini bliss. Dakini in Buddhism, these are powerful beings, feminine energy, you could say, but very powerful beings. They're more than devatas. They're dharma protectors. They're very powerful beings who protect the dharma and who enable the dharma. So the word he used for her is, what you're experiencing. He just said, that's Dakini bliss. Dakini bliss. And it was like a key that in that moment, like a key had been inserted into her, and it unlocked something. And there was a revolution which happened inside of her. She just sat there for the next few hours, and tears and tears and tears were streaming down. And she realized the very thing she was judging, her teacher saw that as Dakini bliss. This is Dakini bliss. This is the bliss of the Dakinis. Love my uncertainty, for it is not a mistake. So we are notorious at not knowing what is truly in our benefit. What is not in our benefit, we think is great spiritual progress. If you were that Miller Epper, you would have said, what kind of a nonsensical teacher have I got? Does he want to make me into some kind of an architect or something? Making a building again and again. But I've come here for spiritual instruction. And he's made me into a laborer, going up and down, building this. But the whole thing, it is not to build and unbuild the tower. It is to build and unbuild you, your sanskaras. The Buddha would send, there was a very learned scholar, very, very learned. So he could talk about any aspect of the teachings. And many people had become enlightened listening to him. But the Buddha knew this fellow is himself not enlightened. He's caught up in his concepts. So Buddha calls him and says, you go and study with that monk. He will guide you further. All right. So he goes with great expectation. This monk is going to guide me further. He's shocked to find that this monk is an 8-year-old Samanera. Samanera like a novice monk. Huh? I'm this great teacher. I teach everybody. I know all the scriptures. I know everything. And the Buddha has sent me to learn from an 8-year-old Samanera. This 8-year-old was not a normal 8-year-old. He was a fully enlightened 8-year-old. And this 8-year-old gives him instructions. And right away he has to eat humble pie. I have to learn from this 8-year-old. And that's what he needed. He needed to really subdue his ego. Have you heard this beautiful story? This teacher, great master, is dying, and the students surround him. And the master says, now is the time. If you have any questions, now is the time. I'm going to be gone soon. So one of the students says, Master, you have taught everything very beautifully. We really have no doubts. But there is one thing we never really understood, because you didn't talk about it. You never spoke about your teachers. You never spoke about your masters. We never got to know. So we are very curious. Who is your teacher? Who is your master? Can you please tell us that? So the teacher smiled and said, let me tell you about, I've not had one teacher. I've had many teachers. So once I was thirsty and I was walking, I could see a river. So I was going to the river to get some water. Before I could enter the river, a dog came, jumped into the water, swam around, drank his fill, and walked away. And I was stunned. I said, wow, he didn't need a bowl. I threw away my bowl. I also jumped in, swam around, drank my fill. And I always remember that dog, great teacher, taught me how simple life can be. I was attached to my bowl. That dog was a great teacher to me. One day I was walking to a village. I lost my way, so by the time I got there, it was quite late at night. There was a man there, and I said, excuse me, sir, I've gotten lost, and I've just arrived at this village. Can you suggest a place I can stay? So the man said, sure, you can be my guest. I'd be honored to have you as my guest. But you should know something. What is that? I'm a thief. He's taken aback. And the man starts laughing. He says, you're hesitant. I should be hesitant of you. You're a spiritual person. I should be hesitant to invite a spiritual person like you into my home. You might convert me. But looks like you're hesitant to stay with me. So right away you realize I made a big mistake. I said, I apologize. You have invited me to your home. Who am I to judge you for what you do? I apologize for being hesitant. Please accept me, if you will, as your guest. So he takes him to his home. He gives him some food to eat, make sure he's comfortable. And then he says, "Excuse me, I have work to do." So he leaves. He comes in the morning. So the teacher asks him, so how did it go? Did you get something? He says, "No, I didn't get anything today. But all is well. God is taking care of it." So during the day, they have a nice conversation and they have good interaction. In the evening, he says, "Excuse me, I have work to do." So he goes. Again, next morning, "How did it go? Did you get something?" He says, "No, today also didn't get anything, but no worries. God is taking care of things." For 3 months, he stayed with this man. He must have been a really bad thief because day after day, he couldn't get anything. And he said that thief was one of my greatest teachers because there were so many times I almost gave up on the practice. I said, "This can't happen. Certainly not for me. It can't happen." And just before I gave up, I remember that thief. He did not even give up on his thieving. He had faith in God. He said, "It'll be fine. God is taking care of it. I'm on a spiritual path and I'm giving up." Oh my goodness. That thief was one of my greatest teachers. He told me, never give up. Even if you're a thief, don't give up. One day, I was walking to a temple, very famous temple, and many people were coming, and I noticed a small boy carrying a little lamp in his hand. And I felt a little playful. I felt like teasing the child. So I got down to my knees and said, "Little boy, the light in your lamp, where did it come from?" So the boy looked into my eyes. He made a little expression like this. And then he blew out the lamp and he said, "It came from the same place it went now." The teacher was shocked. What an answer. Oh my goodness, what a profound answer. This is not an ordinary boy. This boy is a great teacher to me. So he told his students, "I'm about to die now. But you see, I'm not hesitant. Because the light in me is only going to go back from the place it came." That boy was a great teacher to me. He told me it only goes back where it comes from. This light of consciousness, somehow it's come, somehow it's appeared. It's going to go back to where it came. It's going to go back to its source. What is there to hesitate? I'm without hesitation. And this is why all of life has been my teacher. And this is what I'd like all of you to also remember. All of life is your teacher. Please take all of life as your teacher, everyone and everything. I imagine most of you here, perhaps all of you, have been to Mudanahalli. And one experience I've certainly had, I imagine most of you, probably all of you had, is you have a question, you have a doubt, you have some challenge you're facing, and you pray, "Please guide me." The guidance comes in many ways. It doesn't just come from when Swami gives a talk or when Swami walks through the hall or says something to you. No, it comes in many, many ways. Somebody will say something casually at lunchtime. You're like, that's the answer I was looking for. Or you'll open a random book and that's the answer I was looking for. Or a dream you'll get, that's the answer I was looking for. And you start realizing, wow, this ultimate consciousness that we see as Swami is not limited to a form. In fact, probably that's the whole mission of the subtle body, is to realize that it's not limited to a body. Why are you still caught up in a body? Now you have a new idea, this is the body. So then what have you really learned? So it's everywhere in everything. And very much so in your inner knowing, that inner knowing that you have. So today's topic is no limits. The joy of practicing everywhere. So let me first take you through a practice of no limits. Right? In the tradition of Kashmir Shaivism, they talk about 6 ways in which we get contracted, 6 ways in which we get limited. So let me go ahead and invite you to unlimit yourself in these 6 ways. Your eyes can be open or closed as you listen to these instructions. So the first limitation is a limitation of location. So to imagine that you're in one location and not in other locations. This is the first contraction of consciousness. So when I imagine, I'm in Pune. I'm in this part of Pune. I'm in this home in Pune. I'm in this room of my home. And I'm in this body. Then that would be an example of being bitten by the serpent of location. As an unlimited being, you got hypnotized by the serpent of location. So now go ahead for a minute and actually timelessly forget about minutes. Who are you without the assumption that you're only in one place? You're only in some place and not in other places. Suppose that assumption is removed. You don't have to imagine anything. Just inwardly relax the assumption that I am limited to a particular place and a particular body. Something happens. Let's go on to the second limitation of consciousness. The assumption that I'm limited to a certain time. So 2020, June, what date is it? 27th of June. This time of the day, whichever country you're in. And to believe that you're limited by time and also limited by your age. This is my age, I'm so many years old. Any way in which you define yourself by time and you limit yourself by time, you've been bitten by the serpent of time. And your consciousness, which is unlimited, infinite, has gotten hypnotized into believing, I'm only limited to this time. Just go ahead. Who are you without the assumption that you're bound to only one time? Just relax that assumption. Release that assumption. And the next limitation, by the way, don't seek for any particular experience. Whatever happens is fine. I've just given you I've poked you in a particular way. See what happens when I poke you in this way. That's all. Don't look for anything specific. The third way in which consciousness is limited is attachment. I'm attached to, what are you attached to? You're attached to people, places, activities, things, food, books. I have a big board game collection. I'm attached to my board game collection. What are we attached to? So this is the third way in which your consciousness has been bitten by the serpent of attachment. That you're attached to certain things, you're not attached to other things. And you define yourself at some level based on your attachment. And the fear which comes, the tightness, the contraction that comes inevitably with an attachment. So just go ahead. Who are you without the assumption that you're limited to any attachment whatsoever? Don't ask, how do I get attached? Just, who are you without it? Attachments don't apply to you. Something deep down relaxes. It has to relax because this is the reality. The fourth contraction of consciousness is the contraction of knowledge. I know this. I've learned this. I understand this. I don't know this. I don't understand this. I've not learned this. Oh, I've learned history. I've not learned quantum physics. I've learned quantum physics. I haven't learned mathematics. I haven't learned biology. I know about Indian spirituality. I don't know about Mayan spirituality. So all the ways in which we convince ourselves, I know this and I don't know this. You've been bitten by the serpent of knowledge. To believe I know certain things and I don't know certain things is the contraction of knowledge. So who are you without the assumption that you only know certain things and you don't know other things? Suppose that assumption is taken away. Who are you without that fourth contraction of knowledge? Let's come to the fifth contraction. The fifth way in which we get contracted and we get deceived and we start to hallucinate a life for ourselves is the contraction of skill. You get bitten by the contraction of skill when you assume I have certain skills, I don't have other skills. I'm very good at riding a motorbike. I don't know how to ride a tractor, drive a tractor. I'm very good at flying a plane, but believe it or not, I don't know how to ride a bicycle. I'm very good at eating with a fork and knife, but chopsticks, I don't know. All the ways in which you assume you have certain skills, but you don't have other skills. I can do an open heart surgery, but I can't fix your cavity in your mouth. That skill I don't have. Achha. So who are you without the contraction, the belief that you have certain skills and you don't have certain skills? Suppose that was just not available to you. That idea was not available to you. Right. Last contraction. The contraction of separation. This is at some level the root contraction. To be bitten by the serpent of separation means I am separate. I am separate from you. I am separate from that tree. I am separate from that star. I am separate from that molecule. I am separate from, you name it, separate. And when you believe that this is separate from that, you have been bitten by the core poison, the root poison of separation. You're bitten by the serpent of separation. And with that one serpent of separation, all the other serpents will also arise. The separation of skill, the separation of knowledge, the separation of attachment, separation of time, separation of location. So who are you in this moment? Without the belief, without the assumption that you are separate. And suppose all 6 assumptions were released simultaneously. Go ahead, see what happens. So I'm ripping off the assumption of location. I'm dissolving the location of time. I'm releasing the location, the limitation, the assumption of attachment. Releasing the assumption of knowledge, the limitation of knowledge, the limitation of skill, and the assumption, the limitation of separation. So go ahead. All 6 are simultaneously removed right now. And the subtle version of these 6 is also removed right now. And the shadow of these 6 is also removed right now. And the memory of these 6 is also removed right now. All right, take a deep breath. So welcome home. Welcome home. To the extent you went along with that, you returned home. You returned to your essential nature, true nature. This is your home frequency. This is home base. And yes, you can emerge from that into samsara. You can emerge from that into creation. There's a beautiful teaching about samsara and nirvana. Nirvana, rightly understood, is samsara. Samsara, fully penetrated, is nirvana. I love that. So even these are not really a duality. Nirvana, rightly understood, is samsara. And samsara, fully penetrated, is nirvana. In samsara, you long for nirvana. In nirvana, you dream of samsara. And that's how it continues. The play goes on. So what's it like to transcend even this duality of nirvana and samsara? So for today's topic of the joy of practicing everywhere, you have to ask yourself, but like I said earlier, we don't know what is good for us. We get captivated by all kinds of things. At least I do. I don't know about all of you. You may be more enlightened than I am. You get caught up in all kinds of things. So then my work is to recognize this home frequency we just touched right now. What is it that helps me easefully, gracefully, practically, actually come back to home frequency? And maybe that is a mantra. And maybe that is a sense of surrender. And maybe that is a visualization. And maybe that is a breath meditation. Or maybe that is seeing everyone and everything as Swami. And maybe it is reading a few lines of the Gita or any other scripture and being quiet after that. And more important than any of those things I just mentioned, but that's not really the point. The point is, what is it pointing towards? Where is it? What happens is we, instead of looking at the moon, we look at the finger that's pointing at the moon. You get so caught up in that finger that's pointing at the moon. So, when you get a taste of that, then the Buddha says, Sabba rasang dhamma rasang jinati. No taste in the world matches this taste. No taste in the world matches the taste of truth. Which is why so many youngsters on the call today, both in age and in attitude. Why are you on this call today? You could be doing anything, any number of things. You could be watching Netflix. You could be, making more money one way or the other. Why are you on this call today? Because somewhere something in you has tasted the tasteless. And now that has it's like at some level, before today's session began, it's like I was just centering myself and I realized a space is getting created within me. A clearing is getting created within me. And in that clearing, this larger intelligence can operate. And after I finish the talk, what might happen is the clearing might close in a little bit. I might get involved in my tasks and this and that. But the clearing is still there, right? And that clearing has its own intelligence. And it will not let me deviate beyond a point. Beyond a point, it will not let me get caught up in this. It'll go like, enough, Nithya Shanti, come back. Enough. You've had your fun, come back. And that's what's beautiful, right? And so it'll be more clear and less clear. But that clearing has its own intelligence. Dhamma hita kilesava. The truth, hita is destroys, ravishes. What's it called? Cuts it out, right? Eliminates. Kilesa are the defilements, are the intoxications, are all the ways in which we are hypnotized. All the way that we've missed the point. So that inner truth is what then takes over. So our work, our sadhana, is just to keep returning to that clearing. Keep coming back to that clearing. Keep coming back to your home frequency. Keep coming back to your essential nature. In Kashmir Shaivism, the essential nature is, it's all vibration. Spandan. Everything is vibrating. And you know what's amazing? That which is conscious of the vibration is not separate from the vibration. So consciousness is that which knows. It knows what? It knows the dance. But it is not separate from the dance. Which is why Shiva never paints. Shiva dances. Because in every other art form you can separate. If you're a sculptor, you can separate the sculpture from the sculptor. But in the dance, you cannot separate the dancer from the dance. Because the dance is the dancer and the dancer is the dance. Which is why Shiva dances. The reason Shiva dances is because Shiva is conscious as well as Shiva is the play. So I once met this teacher of Kashmir Shaivism and I said, so what is the teaching here? He says, we believe that the universe is like a cup. Cup. Yeah, like a cup. Universe is like a cup. It's one cup. The whole cup is Shiva. Whatever word you want to use with Shiva. Shiva just means the ultimate, right? The whole world is Shiva. And one lip of the cup is looking at the other lip of the cup and imagining it's different from the other lip. One edge of the cup is looking at the other edge and imagining it's different, but it's the same cup. One leaf on the tree is looking at the other leaf and thinking that's another leaf. It's the same tree. So Shiva takes on the shape of a mirror-like cup. I am right now teaching myself. Let's be very clear about it. I'm only teaching myself. I've only ever done things to myself. Kind things and mean things and indifferent things. I've only done things to myself. So we're all doing it to ourselves, right? So then I asked him, well, what's the teaching here then? Well, if everything is Shiva, if everything is God, if everything is just that. So he said, yes, there are two teachings. Relax and be spontaneous. Like, Relax and be spontaneous. Nice teaching. That's a good one. I like it. Relax and be spontaneous. That I can do. So what happens when you relax and get spontaneous? I was reading this beautiful book the other day. It's called Maro Up. It's about these, in fact, you should all read it. Great book. Maro Up by Ken Honda. It's a short book, 38 pages. It's about this business tycoon of Japan called Vahe Takeda. And how his belief in success, in which is very similar to what our community believes. If you want to be successful in life, raise the quality of your heart. The word Maro in Japanese means sincere heart or true heart. So his philosophy for success is, it's not learn this and do that and influence people and, all of this, get mentors, all that's fine. The main reason the main way to get successful, Maro is sincerity, up of course is the English word. Raise the quality of your Maro. Become more sincere, become more true. And there's no end to this. There's no end to how sincere and true you can become. When you become more sincere and true, money, Lakshmi is bound to get attracted to you in every way. But that's what money wants. Money wants sincere people. So in this book, there was a lovely chapter in which one of the co-authors, Janet Atwood, she says she has met over 100 wise, enlightened people in India and other parts of the world. So she relates one incident. She's going to meet a Swami who's very famous. And nobody knows his name. He just lives in a cave. So he's just called Cave Swami. So she's going to meet Cave Swami. And Cave Swami is very famous. So every day there's a long line of people who come to get his blessings. He just spends a few seconds with each person. He'll touch their head. He'll say one word. He'll just say just 1 or 2 seconds with each person. They come and they go. They touch his feet. And everyone is so delighted, so thrilled to meet him. Even that 1 second, like we see in Mudanahalli or other places, when Swami comes, 1 second, so happy, the whole day's stress is gone. So similar with this, all these people are coming. And she's noticing Cave Swami is there, but right next to him is a radio loudly playing the news of a soccer match, commentary of a soccer match. You're wondering, what is this? Soccer match is going on. So, like when our Swami walks around, there's Vedic chanting going on. So it's wonderful, spiritual. But this Cave Swami, soccer match is going on. So when her turn comes, she bows to him. She also gets her blessing. She says, one question. You're playing a soccer match? I mean, all these people are coming to get your blessing. You're playing a soccer match. Isn't it a little sacrilegious? So he smiles and just says 4 words to her. And those 4 words, she says, change her life forever. I love those 4 words. Those 4 words are, one must be oneself. He likes to listen to soccer. One must be oneself. So beautiful. So each one of us here is the real beauty, the real blessing is you relax and be spontaneous. You relax and be spontaneous. And you're going to mess it up in all kinds of ways. You're going to get, you're going to miss it. You're going to keep getting contracting this way. And you're going to get feedback. Life's going to give you feedback. Why? Because you're trying to be somebody else. You're trying to become somebody else, copy somebody else. Relax and be yourself. Be spontaneous. One must be oneself. One must be one's true self. So how do you find joy in practicing everywhere? You find a way to return to your home frequency, consciousness and bliss, Satchitananda. And you'll find it in your own way. I don't have to give you techniques. You will find your own techniques. You know, life has given you plenty of evidence already. What gets you there? And if you're still not sure, then just simple as make a prayer and say, please, I'm still not clear. There are too many my mind goes in 10 different directions. What is the one that's right for me? And definitely you will be guided. You will be told. And the Buddha says, beautiful in the beginning, beautiful in the middle, beautiful in the end. This is a path without grumblings. If you're grumbling, you may be on some other path. You're not on this path. Sri Aurobindo called it the sunlit path. How beautiful. You know, I studied in a school in Delhi. It was a Sri Aurobindo school. And there was a relatively long, it was about a 300-meter walk from where the car park was to where the school was. It was a 300-meter walk, lined with trees. And that path was called the sunlit path. So every day we'd walk to school, we'd remind, this is the sunlit path. We're walking in the sunlit path. So this is a sunlit path. It's a path without grumblings. What is grumbling? The thing that is grumbling is exactly what this path is designed to heal and cure and transcend. So if in your spiritual practice, you can just get this much, that my ego tastes a certain way and my essence tastes a certain way. Just this is all you really need to know. When I'm in the world of the ego, it tastes a certain way. Even if you're feeling very, very full of yourself, like, oh, how great I am. Like, what a fantastic talk I just gave right now. It tastes a certain way. And my essence tastes a certain way. And that's all you need to do. Just keep noticing that. Like one of the ways I do it is I ask myself the question, what is it like to be zero? What is it like to be zero? And the moment I ask myself that question, it's like, oh, now suddenly all these thoughts and emotions and accomplishments, it's like, suddenly there's nothing there. And I can immediately juxtapose what is it like to be zero with whatever I'm experiencing in the moment. And even the subtle layers of ego reveal themselves. This is my subtle ego. This is my spiritual ego. What is it like to be zero? In zero, even the spiritual ego can't survive. So like this, you have to find the way that works for you. And with a beautiful momentum, Goenka ji, one of my teachers, had gone to Tihar jail to teach meditation. It was a meditation camp for 1,000 inmates. Never happened before in the history of Indian prison system, 1,000 inmates. And there's a video recording of him just surveying the campus, surveying the place before the retreat starts the next day. And some prisoners come up and very curious, what's going to happen over here? What's going to happen over here? And I remember his words. He spoke in Hindi. Tapna hoga, tapna hoga. Tapna hoga means, tapasya is, there will be a burning. Tapna hoga, you will have to go through the burning. And he smiled and said, Tapna hoga, bahut sukh se, with a lot of joy. So you will go through the fire with a lot of joy. Remember what Hema Chaudhary's teacher told her? Dakhini bliss. Tapna hoga, bahut sukh se. We will go through the fire with a lot of bliss. The right attitude. So with this kind of an attitude, with this kind of a way of looking at things, it has to be. It has to be. Wherever you go, you feel blessed. Wherever you go, you are a blessing. Wherever you go, you become a wide open channel. And my teacher Ajahn Chah used to say, don't even be hungry for enlightenment. Don't even be thirsty for enlightenment. He used to give an example. Someone who came from the airport to the place, like in that case, we were living in that monastery. So someone who came from the airport to the monastery in one go, without making a single wrong turn. Wonderful, good for you. You got to the monastery, good for you. Somebody who got lost 100 times, it took that person 20 years to get from the airport to the monastery. That one is a good guide to the city. If you ever get lost in the city, you'll not call the friend who went straight from the airport to the monastery, because this person doesn't know. If there were a band or a curfew, or some roads are blocked, or there's a flood, or there's something, you'll not call the friend because he only knows one road. But the one who got lost 100 times, you'll call that friend. Yeah, you've been lost in the city. You've spent 20 years getting to the monastery. Can you tell me? Of course I did. Try this one. So those of you who get it very quickly, well, good for you. Congratulations. But those of you who seem to take forever and ever and ever, even better. You're meant to really help a lot of people. So when, have you heard the word hagiography? Hagiography is when you write a biography filled with all these fantastical stories. Oh, this happened and that happened and that happened. So my teacher Ajahn Chah, some students began to write his biography. And he very quickly realized this is not a biography, this is a hagiography. Which means that when he was born, these things happened. As a child, these things happened. And oh, this happened and that happened. And he says, please, this is the kind of book you want to write. Please take it away. I don't want this book. Remove this book. I want you to write about my struggles. I want you to write about all the ways in which I felt so trapped. I had so much of doubt. I had so much of lust. I had so much of confusion. I doubted my teacher. I doubted myself. He says, if you don't want to write about the reality of what I went through, he actually would sometimes, he would live in the deep forest and he'd get so afraid, he'd pee himself. He'd be even so afraid to get out of his little place he was staying. He'd pee himself. He'd wet his own clothes. That's how fearful he would get. He says, if you don't want to include those kind of incidents, then please don't write this biography. You're giving people the wrong impression. Then they all feel, oh, this is all beyond us. Oh, people who are born like this only can become like this. He says, please don't write my biography in that case. Not interested. So beautiful. So, love my uncertainty, for it is not a mistake. If you seem to be taking forever, that's another kind of blessing. It's a different kind of blessing. Special blessing. Man chahi ho to acha, na ho to aur bhi acha. If you don't get what you want, that's fantastic. You're the blessed one. You're the chosen one. Robert Adams reminding us that when we think nothing is happening, that's when the most is happening. Let's take a minute of silence. All right. I feel quite complete. If anybody, Nisha, you want to say something? Are we having some? Do we have time for question answers?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. If anybody wants to, the two ways to do it. One is you can put it into the comments, and the other you can raise your hand. There should be a button to raise your hand, and I'll unmute you. So two ways to interact or ask questions. It could be a sharing. It could be a Q&A. Whatever is feeling good. Right. Go ahead. While people are writing or thinking, yeah, Dinesh. How does one relax and be spontaneous, especially for those of us who are brainwashed to plan ahead? Strategies for contingencies. Yeah. So, instead of a roundabout way, let's go straight. Like right now, let's do it, all right? In consciousness, all possibilities exist. There's a possibility for planning and being brainwashed and all of that. Also in consciousness, there is the possibility of being completely relaxed and completely spontaneous. Not just the impulsive kind of spontaneous that I'll follow my desires, but a deeper kind of Krishna-like spontaneity. So right now, just go ahead. Everyone can just do this right now with us. Go ahead and directly tune in to the frequency of relaxation and spontaneity. So go ahead. Eyes can be open or closed. So there are two ways to be relaxed and spontaneous. One is you do lots of practices, you do a lot of affirmation, visualization, you try to get there. And the other one is you just start with just tune in directly to the frequency of relaxation and spontaneity. And then, yeah, there may be some words that come, there may be some image that come. You may think of some teacher or Krishna or whatever for you represents that kind of relaxed spontaneity that will come to you. Maybe an aspect of nature. Maybe for you, a cloud represents relaxed spontaneity. So go directly to that state of being. Instead of doing things for it, do it from it. So you already know how to do it. You already know this, right? And of course, you're going to miss it now and again, and then you just learn from it, right? That's how it goes. I feel like just since all of you are really quiet, I'm going to get a random person to share. So Shraddha, would you like to share? It's a little better. Yeah, go ahead. Speak a little louder, maybe.
No, I was just saying it's a little bit I'm not entirely sure if I've been able to get what you're saying about relaxed spontaneity. Um, Relaxation makes sense. The spontaneous makes sense. The two together, um, just trying to get my head around that.
So what part of them together does not make sense?
When you reach a state of relaxation, I don't want to use the word incorrectly, but if you're at a state of Zen and you're not really thinking about too much, the idea of being spontaneous sort of sounds like, I'm not sure.
All right, let me just address it, see if this makes sense. What ends up happening is we go to one extreme or the other, right? So one extreme is we get so relaxed that we just want to like zone out.
Okay.
And the other extreme is we get so active that we get restless.
Yep.
So the reason we meditate or do any actually spiritual practice is to come to this very beautiful center. So normally when I sit and I close my eyes, it's an invitation to fall asleep, right? Or I'm busy doing things, or busy, so busy I'm extroverted. But now here's the interesting thing, that I'm relaxed, at the same time I'm really alert. So alert and relaxed at the same time.
Okay.
And alert to the nudges, the subtle nudges that are coming. And where are these nudges coming from? And this is, so spontaneity is not, like I said, not impulsiveness. There's a certain discernment over there. Is it wholesome? Is it loving? Right? So like I had to learn this because I would be spontaneous in a way that I'd be funny quite a bit. But sometimes that funny would be at the expense of others. Mm-hmm. Or sometimes that funny would be to cover up, like I don't want to deal with some discomfort, or make a joke around it. Mm-hmm. So this feedback, I got this feedback, Nithya, you use laughter and fun to go away from things that even need attention. Someone's giving you feedback, and instead of receiving the feedback, you made a joke out of it. That's a point. Good point. Thank you. Didn't know that. So it's a state of discernment, and you're able to check as your awareness speeds up, or I would say gets more settled. Maybe more than speeds up is better, gets settled. Then earlier we were getting hypnotized by thoughts and emotions very easily, but now not so easily anymore. And now we're able to discern, just like the security, like in my building now, the security guards are able to discern who is a resident and who is not a resident. If you're not a resident, sorry, coronavirus, you cannot enter. Very, very strict, right? If you're a resident, you can. My own secretary can't come inside for so long. You can't come, you're not a resident. So they're very discerning. Those guards will not let anybody in. Only if you're a resident, you can come. So now you have to check with yourself, what is suitable? What is serving? What is right? And that doesn't have to be all serious and heavy stuff. It can also be a lot of joyful stuff. Like most people don't know this, but monks laugh so much. We laugh so much. We have such a good time. But of course, when we come out to get our food, we're always serious in receiving our food. Then we go back and laugh. So if you're truly on the spiritual path, like I said, it's a path without grumbling. Right? It's a path without grumbling. It's a very joyful path, very beautiful path. So I hope that does not answer your questions. So you could reflect more deeply and get your own answers.
I think maybe it makes a little more sense.
Yeah.
Sorry, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. No, I think maybe that makes more sense because I think I was focusing on spontaneity, and I think that was the problem with regards to getting to a state of relaxation.
Yeah.
Getting more reflective, that part makes sense. So sometimes when you're just silent, that's when you get answers to a lot of things. Sometimes it may take image that you stare at or something. Oh, that makes sense. It was, I suppose maybe I was focusing on this word, and then that confusion was.
Let me actually, Shraddha, let me change the word for you. Instead of calling it spontaneous, for you, I'd call it responsive. So okay, be relaxed and be responsive, right? I think that's what better for you. And just give me 1 second. Hold on. Yeah, I'm back. All right, so go with that. Go with relaxed and responsive. That's probably a better match for you.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yep.
Beautiful.
Okay. Thank you.
Take care. Would anybody else like to say something? Or you're going to get volunteer if you don't. Be careful. Brinda, you're in trouble. Please unmute yourself. Go ahead, Brinda.
Hello. Yeah,
Hello.
it was a very good and insightful talk. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed every part of it. But how do you, going to the 6 ways in which consciousness is limited, how do you like go beyond the limitation of space? I didn't know how to conceptualize.
You're in a movie and there's 6 actors in the movie. And I suddenly, in the middle of the movie, I remind you, hey, this is just a movie. You're saying, yeah, I understand these 5 are actors, but that 6th one, I think is really real. So you see, once you realize it's a movie, So it's just, it's not you have to try to do some mental manipulations, some mental gymnastics to jump out of this one. It's just as simple as that. Could it be, maybe make it a question like this, could it be that I'm hypnotized into believing that I'm limited to a location? Or like the word you used, a space. Could it be that I'm hypnotized into believing I am limited to a time and to certain attachments and to certain knowledge and skills and separation? Who am I without this hypnotic trance? And just ask that question. You don't have to do anything more than that. That simple suggestion is enough to start doing the magic.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And don't try to get to any other state, right? The state you're in is the perfect state. There's no other state. The only thing we're taking away is the layers we're adding onto it unconsciously.
Okay.
How is it that Sai Baba, staying in one place, was healing people all over the place? Was coming in dreams all over the place? How is that possible? Because obviously he'd liberated himself from the belief that he's limited to one body and one time.
Mm-hmm.
How is that possible? So are we not his students? Do we not want to follow the same example of his? And that is his example. So even tiny, tiny steps in that direction. That's how it goes. It's beautiful how it starts happening. Which part of the world are you in? Let's limit you back to location. Which location are you?
I'm in Singapore.
Part of me is in Singapore. All right, good.
Okay.
We get how about we get through Thuvashini. Thuvashini? Is that have I pronounced your name right? Thuvashini. Can you unmute yourself?
Sairam, brother, thank you
Sairam.
very much for this session. I'm from Malaysia, okay. I only joined halfway because I was at work and I was driving back when I was listening to the part of 6 ways of your limitation of consciousness. It was really, really beautiful. So at that point, I was like thinking, oh my, I'm actually driving and how am I going to like be focused on all these that he's saying? So I was like, fine, I was getting a bit agitated. And I was like, okay, let's just center ourselves, relax, and just try to download or listen to whatever he's saying and try to absorb. It was very beautiful. Like, even though when I was driving, I could actually feel a surge of energy over my body. And yeah, it was really beautiful. And that, it gave me a sense of peace actually at the end. Yeah, that was a very, very beautiful session. And actually yesterday, I was having this, listening to this talk on Shiva Shakti and Yin and Yang, consciousness, unconsciousness. So I just felt like your talk today was a sequel to what I've been following for the past week actually. Thank you very much for the session today. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. I'm glad you made it home safe. I'd be in big trouble otherwise.
Yeah, no, I'm back home safe, very safe. Yes. Yeah, I'm back home actually. I mean, I thought that I missed.
On me next time. Nithya, please give a travel advisory if driving.
Because I was worried, like I was driving, so I was like, oh my God, how am I supposed to drive and like, follow this at the moment? But then I just centered myself and I said, okay, it's okay. Let's just concentrate on the breath and just listen to whatever he's saying, because whatever is happening now is exactly what I'm supposed to experience. Let's not fight the moment. So yeah, it was very beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Glad
Thank you so much.
Arden, would you like to share something? I've unmuted you. You have to unmute yourself as well, though. Arden T.
Thank you, bro, for your sharing your experience. Happy to hear it, bro.
Wonderful. And where are you? Where are you right now?
Indonesia, bro.
Indonesia. And what part of today's session was most helpful or meaningful for you?
Yeah, when silence, yeah, we can get conscious. If we want to get the consciousness, starting from silence first for me.
Perfect. Lovely. Thank you, Arden. Have I pronounced your name right?
Sorry?
Is it Arden? How do you pronounce your name?
Yes, this is my name, Arden.
Arden. Oh, it's Arden. All right. Thank you, Arden. Lovely. Thanks for joining.
You're welcome, bro. Sairam.
Sairam and Yudhishthira wants to speak. Go Yudhishthira.
Saram, brother.
Sairam.
I love the part where you mentioned the 6 ways to remove. I can't remember the word, but 6 ways, and then the answer which I feel I got was if you remove all those things like attachment and one by one you remove. The answer that I got was either I'm nothing or everything. So like even like the last one is it separation, right? When we remove separation, I feel as if we are everything, right? That's the one thing I think my takeaway. And then after that, you somewhere through your talk you mentioned about we are missing the point. So I maybe don't know if you can answer this. Like what is actually the point in everything?
It's like when you're playing football with your friends and suddenly you raise your hand, excuse me, I've got a question. Guys, I've got a question. So they all stop. What happened? What's the question? What's the purpose of life? They'll say, can you please stop it? We're playing football right now. Can you just get off the field? What are you doing? Purpose of life, you're playing football right now. Let's just play football. So this question, what is the point, only emerges when we are not in our resonance. When you're in your resonance, when you're in your flow, this question about what is the purpose, what is the point, all these questions disappear. So more than telling you what is the point, I want you to investigate in your life. Where in doing what or being what does this question disappear? And then there'll be certain, like maybe you're working or you're with certain relatives or you're doing certain things and you're like, what is this heavy? It's like, I'm not sure this is it. So that is feedback that this is not the point. or maybe it is the point, but the way you're approaching it is not the point. So that is something you have to answer for yourself. But when that question disappears, what is the purpose? What is the point? When that disappears, then you're home. So I'm going to answer it in that way.
Okay, thank you, brother. I think that's helpful in a way as well.
Thank you, Yudhishthir. Thank you for joining us. And we have a question from Vasudha, who says, this may be going a bit off topic, but since it's your pet topic, here it is. You speak a lot about the law of vibration, law of attraction, reflection, resound. However, are those thoughts choosing us or are we consciously choosing them? So when you say us and them, this is what Ramana Maharshi was asked. So is there free will or is there destiny? Something similar to what you're asking. Is it all happening by itself or are we making it happen? So he says more important than the question of free will and destiny is asking who is the one who's subject to free will and who is the one who's subject to destiny? And that's a very beautiful turnaround of that question. So when you see there's an assumption there of us. Now suppose I took away those 6 limitations from here, right? The limitation of separation especially, I took that away. So when there's no limitation of separation, now check if that question still applies. It's just one movement. It's just one big movement that's happening. Big or small also doesn't apply. It's just one movement. And even movement again is missing the point. Because from the standpoint of consciousness, from the standpoint of movement, there's no movement. From the standpoint of consciousness, there is movement. When you're in the train, you don't. It's already moving, so then you don't feel the movement, right? So I would say, as long as you have a sense of doership, I'm doing it, I'm thinking it, all right. So if you have a sense of doership, then you say, okay, since I'm thinking these thoughts, then what's the highest quality thought? What's the most empowering thought? The lovely thing I read, one of my friends told me recently, he said, always think yourself above your feelings. I found that a beautiful statement. Always think above your feeling. Because your feeling is your sanskara. This is your karma. This is what's manifesting. This is your old momentum. But to think myself above my feeling, is like right now I'm feeling dull, I'm feeling lethargic, but I say, but I want to serve people, but I want to teach this, but I want to do this, but exercise feels so good, but I'm grateful. And you choose the next higher level thought. And that is our practice. So you think yourself above your feeling. So as long as you think that you're the doer, then choose the highest level thought. But when you realize, when you see through that, and you realize, oh, it's just a happening, then you're just in a state of wonder. And in that state of wonder, it's like the owner of the house is woken up. Thieves cannot enter when the owner of the house is, like the light is on. When the light is on, no thief enters. So when you're in that state of curiosity, like one of my teachers, Byron Katie, she said something very beautiful once. She was going to the shopping mall to buy something. She had to also buy some water. She said, I'm very curious to see, because you see in a supermarket, there are many brands of water, many sizes, many bottles. I'm very curious to see which bottle the hand will pick up. I wonder which one is going to pick up. I'm very curious to see what the next thought will be. I'm very curious. Like in these kind of sessions, I'm very curious what's going to come out of my mouth. I'm very curious what's going to happen. Who knows? Right? So I think they're both valid. But the deeper question is, who is the one that's subject to free will? Who's the one that's subject, that is making, who's the one that is freely deciding, or who is the one that is subject to things happening by themselves? As long as you keep questioning that. Another way of saying this is, where is it all converging? Look at your whole life. Isn't it a convergence? Your whole life. Everything you saw converged somewhere. Everything you heard converged somewhere. Everything you experienced and felt converged somewhere. Everything, even right now, everything is converging. All your thoughts and your sounds and sights are all converging somewhere. So where is it all converging? Isn't that a question worth asking? Instead of always getting lost in the paraphernalia. So you ask, that's the main question. And that's a more significant question, because inbuilt into your question is an assumption that there is a static, solid us that is either choosing or getting buffeted around by circumstances or by life. But what if you find that that is also just another part of that's another concept, just another assumption? Who are you without that assumption? All right, I'm feeling pretty complete. I don't think we have any more questions either. So Nisha, your turn to come on board.
I just want to thank you on behalf of everybody for sharing with us today. I think for me personally, the things that I thought were so beautiful was how you were trying to get us to be familiar with our resting frequencies, to love the uncertainty, and to realize that it's all a process of unbuilding ourselves, and to look at all of life, the animate, the inanimate as our teacher, so that we can return home to that room that we're already in. So thank you, Nithya.
Beautiful. Thank you all for inviting me and for participating so wholeheartedly. And just like Nisha lost her glasses along the way, may you also lose all the barriers between you and the reality. You realize that what you're seeking, you already are. What you want to become, you already are. You are the beloved. You are the beloved. I had a dream last night where I was told that I'm the chief alchemist of the universe. Like, no way, I don't want to be this, too much responsibility, chief alchemist of the universe. Oh, no way, no way. No way, Jose. And the dream said, listen, if you want it or not, you are. So that's what's going to happen. We have to just realize that we are deserving, and we're more deserving than we could believe. We're more deserving. My brother said something nice to me the other day. He was talking to me, and he was just admiring me, and he was telling me, Nithya, you're a very strong person. You've been through all these ups and downs in your life, and you've just taken such a nice, dignified way. And you became a monk, and you went through that very. And just listening to him, something in me, I realized that when I look at my monk life, I sometimes think of all the ways I was not a very good monk. And listening to him, I realized, it's true. This is my ego had thing there also. There also, if I could have done this, should have done that, should have hung out, whatever. Should have practiced more or whatever. I read too many books. I should have practiced more. I mean, all these judgments. Who am I without those judgments? So it's beautiful for him to say that, and for beautiful me to receive that. So layer by layer, we all have to learn to receive our full inheritance. Our full inheritance. And so if you have to go through, like Miller Repa, you have to go through some tribulations. then bring it on. Welcome. Welcome. This is exactly what the doctor ordered. Love the uncertainty, for it is not a mistake. Lots of love. All right, be well.